All right, how are we? Hello, welcome back to the pod.
Yes.
My name is Georgia.
And I'm Olivia.
Welcome to Nurse Ratchet.
Cue. Dun, 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 dun.
Your music sounds nothing like the intro music,
Yeah, I know.
FYI. Just clocking that right
Dun,
now.
dun,
Isn't that like an intro to like movies or something? I swear that's an old school. Yeah, that. Yeah, that's the one.
Well, we fucked that last bit
I
up.
tried to harmonise with you and it just...
I lost the harmony. I'm sorry. Apologies.
Nah, it was me. Anyway, welcome back to our epic podcast.
Yes.
And welcome to all the new listeners who have made their way here after my viral TikTok video calling out
What
a
was it about?
nurse
Okay.
for spreading misinformation. She's a typical anti-vaxxer nurse who lost their job during the pandemic because they refused to get the jab.
Oh.
And she basically decided to up her followers somehow or get in more right-wingers by doing a video that started with what hospitals don't want you to know. And she basically said shit like this. I've seen nurses literally kill patients and not get fired. And it's like, old people get neglected, period, point blank. Mentally ill get fully neglected. They get treated like animals, period, point blank. She also had the audacity. Statements. Yes. First issue. She also said, which I thought was outrageous, that organ donors are still alive when they go to the operating room to get their organs taken out.
Well,
Crickets.
yeah, they are.
They're not. They're not alive. They're dead. They're oxygenated. There's a difference.
They're only brain dead.
Yeah. They're still dead.
But brain dead, but physiologically they're not
Pronounced dead.
Okay.
They're dead.
Have you done organ transplants before?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a person who's fucking brain dead
Yeah.
and is not going to survive off a ventilator,
Yeah.
who has been pronounced that way as such and is an organ donor.
Is that actually clinically dead?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Why would they take their organs if they weren't clinically dead?
Because you have to be alive to take organs generally, so that the organs are still functioning, no?
But they're not alive. They're ventilated.
They're still alive though. They haven't had cellular death yet.
But they're brain dead.
But there's no cellular death, Georgia. The heart and the lungs and the kidneys and the liver and everything are still working generally.
But they won't work for much longer.
Yeah, that's after they've taken out the organ.
No. What I'm saying is if you're brain dead, your brain dies and you can't maintain homeostasis and everything dies. Your organs shut down.
What about brainstem function?
That only really operates the lungs.
And the heart.
And the heart, yeah.
And the diaphragm and the gastrointestinal system.
No.
No?
No, not the GI tract. That's why when you have someone with mass brain swelling and they herniate into their brainstem, they fucking die because their brainstem's dead.
Generally, yes.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Shit, I was going to say something and I forgot.
Anyway, we got there in the end. But what I was saying, she said this.
Okay.
And my immediate thought was people who are donating their loved ones' organs are going to go, oh, they're still alive. Fuck. I'm not going to do that now.
Yeah.
With that misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
I was outraged at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she said much what you said. She was like, if they've...
Are you going to come at me now,
No.
Georgia?
No.
Georgia attacks Olivia in a viral TikTok video.
She goes, if they're ventilated, yeah, they're ventilated, which means it depends how you look at it. I'm a very spiritual person, so if they're being ventilated, then to me, they're still alive. And I was like, great. But
I didn't give a fuck about spirituality.
it's about the science of it all.
Yeah, exactly. What the hell? Look, there's no cellular death. I'm going to say that. Besides in the brain.
Yeah, which
The
is
other
the
organs are
computer
functioning.
of all things.
But look, if you turn off that ventilation, like often patients will resume their own breathing, even though it's like really fucked up breathing and it's not effective.
Chain Stokes.
And yeah, exactly.
Agonal.
Respiration.
Which
stuff
is
like that.
the breaths you take before death.
Yes. It's like the brainstem's last desperate attempt to get air and oxygen.
Correct. And what ensues after that?
Death.
Correct.
But
Trust Olivia to play devil's advocate.
We
actually love that, though.
sitter. We know this. I'm the biggest fence sitter.
No,
and I'm always
it's important
going
to have these conversations for sure.
I'm always going to present multiple sides and be open to multiple sides.
Yeah, no, that's good. Anyway,
Yes.
consensus is this woman is an absolute nutter.
Okay.
She threatened my registration because I was, quote unquote, bullying her for calling out her misinformation. Fun times. How did we get here? Oh, yeah. Anyway, welcome to all the new listeners who clearly thought that I was correct. Love you. Good to have you here.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Olivia is a fence sitter, but she's happy to have you here too.
I am a what? A fence
A fence
yes.
sitter, yeah. Mm-hmm. Look, I often sit on fences in some topics, for sure.
Of course.
Depends.
And can see things a little bit more
and
clearly.
you can have conversations that are productive and not divisive with people who...
Rather than, fuck you, Georgia.
Yeah.
How dare you say that?
She told
so wrong.
She told me to eat a dick.
Don't worry, she's done plenty of that.
I've done
To cover all
so
three
much,
of us, babe.
So much dick eating. So don't you worry, babe. I am eating all the dicks.
She's very, very
I am
experienced.
suffocating on those dicks. Anyway, well, how was your Mother's Day, darling? How were the stepchildren?
It was actually quite good. Yes, they did a little surprise for me. So one of them, she drew a map of the house, of the apartment, and they put little stars and arrows where the presents were hidden.
Cute.
And three of them hid one present each, so I got 3 presents.
Nice.
And so what did they give me? They got me some Ferrero Rocher chocolates.
Oh, yeah.
Sour squams and
Yum.
a very nice coconut vanilla scented candle.
Fuck yeah, we love a candle.
Yeah.
That's very cute of them to do
Too
that.
smart.
Shout out to the step parents out there who fucking step up, literally.
They asked to do it for me, apparently,
Yeah, that's cute.
which is nice. So,
Yeah, that's really nice.
yeah.
It's glad to be appreciated.
Yeah, they're like, she's not our mum, but she does do a
lot
lot
of
of
mum
stuff for us
Yeah,
and take
she's
care
there.
of us. And I
She's
was like,
literally
"Oh."
there. You know, there's something to be said for doing that with absolutely no experience whatsoever and have a twofold child. She's like, they're twins.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's
double
a little,
whammy. 0 to 200. Bit of a learning curve, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. They're really, one of them's really starting to use the word no
Yeah, we love no.
a lot.
Yeah, good job.
It's the first thing that comes out of her mouth. She doesn't even think about it.
Good.
It's like, no.
We need more women that say no in this world.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. No, you're right. I had to think about that for
Really?
a second with what exactly you mean. But overall, in terms of, yes.
Women need to learn how to be comfortable saying no because women are predominantly people pleasers.
But like actually, off topic, probably shouldn't add this in. How the fuck do you deal with that with the kids?
Saying no?
Yeah, when they say no.
This could be in. This is a good conversation.
Okay, so like
Well,
he asked them to clean their room earlier.
and they say no.
One
Hard
said
no.
yes, one said no. And immediately she said sorry. She knew she like fucked up big time. but then when you say that, it makes me think of like, how do you deal with that with allowing,
them.
teaching her to know that it's actually okay to say sorry, but then saying like, you don't get to say no to cleaning your bedroom and stuff like that.
And
how do
that's the
you?
thing. It's about
I don't know how to do it, and I think Max struggles with it too.
yeah. Well,
So if
what
you
I
can
do
tell me.
is it's all about circumstances in regards to their chores and the things that they are obligated to do to contribute to the household. They don't get out of it. It's helpful to work with them and help them sort of exercise some of their autonomy and say, would you like to clean your room now or would you like to clean it after dinner?
We
and
do
give them
that.
a choice so that they can feel like they have some agency over the situation.
But
you know what I mean?
You know what they say.
Never.
Neither.
Neither. It's
like-
it's a good thing to do. And my children still hate cleaning their rooms, but it's a thing they
course.
have to do.
Fucking
And
hate
it's an
cleaning
ongoing
my bloody
conversation,
room.
But yeah, and also I let my kids make choices about other things that aren't related to fucking cleaning
strict things
or things.
Yeah,
Just
like general
or
everyday
like,
life.
oh, say hi to grandma. Do you want to give her a hug? No. Okay. So especially with like, bodily autonomy and wanting to be touched.
We do a lot of,
You know what I mean?
of course.
Your
that
body
stuff.
is your body and stuff like that. So I think that's the most important part for girls is to teach them that it's okay to say, no, don't touch me,
Yeah.
And with boys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a few times where like their hair's really matted and knotted and stuff. And I have like this nice smelling hair oil and they like the smell of it. And so I offer, do you want me to put hair oil in? And they go, yeah. And I always say, is it okay if I touch your hair?
Can I touch you? Yep.
Yeah. Can I touch your hair?
Yep. It's just all those little consent
if they want a hug
moments.
Do you want to give me a hug?
Yes.
Is what I use, not do you want me to give you a hug?
Yep.
So okay, well I guess we're actually on the
doing
right
a great
track.
job.
But it feels weird though.
Parenting feels weird all the time. You're always constantly questioning whether you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's
always. Yeah, I read somewhere that kids are looking for love and control as well. Yeah, love and control over their own life. My Mother's Day was lovely. I went to my mum's. I got a jar full of lollies, I might add. That's progress because every year I've got an empty jar. Here's a jar, Mum, that did have lollies.
Yeah, so that's what the wrappers
magically disappeared. Yes.
I see.
Yeah. And I got a plant from Hunter because he knows I like plants. And I got a keychain that said, I'm a vibe.
Nice.
Cool.
You are.
I am a total vibe.
Absolutely.
Speaking of vibes, today I am presenting you with a story about a doctor known as Walter Freeman.
Okay, never heard
of him.
Never,
Wow.
ever.
He's a bit of a trailblazer for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
Tell me.
But anyway, he was the doctor that sort of trailblazed the lobotomy. Yes, the lobotomy was a primitive surgical procedure in which the nerve pathways in the lobe or lobes of the brain were severed from those in other areas. The procedure was formerly used as a radical therapeutic measure to help grossly disturbed patients with schizophrenia, manic depression, and mania or bipolar disorder, and other mental issues. Pretty horrific. But yeah, that's where we started, ladies and gents. We had to start somewhere. Evidence that surgical manipulation of the brain could calm patients first emerged in the late 1880s when Swiss physician, forgive my pronunciation, Gottlieb Burckhardt.
That's pretty good.
I don't know. Who supervised an insane asylum, removed parts of the brain cortex in patients suffering from auditory hallucinations and other symptoms of mental illness. The symptoms were later defined medically as schizophrenia. So he just cut out chunks of brain and was like, let's see what this does. Yeah, fucking cool. Burckhardt performed his operation on 6 patients with the specific purpose not of returning the patients to a state of sanity, but of just putting them in a state of calm because obviously they were kicking off and they were like, how the fuck do we fix this?
He's basically maiming them.
Yeah, essentially.
Cerebrally, so they can't
100%.
actually just function properly.
100%. One of Burckhardt's patients died several days following the operation and another committed suicide, though it's unclear whether the suicide was associated with the surgery. However, several of the patients were easier to manage following the surgery. So his idea for the operation had been influenced by the work of German physiologist Friedrich Goltz, who had performed brain ablation. Sounds horrific, doesn't it? Surgical removal of tissue, basically the same thing, different name. He experimented on dogs and observed distinct changes in the animal's behaviour. In the decades following Burckhardt's work, there were few attempts at surgical disruption of the human brain, so people just sort of let it go until 1935. American neuroscientists Carlisle F. Jacobson and John Fulton presented the results of an experiment involving frontal lobe ablation in chimpanzees. Poor buggers.
Oh no.
I know.
What the hell?
Gross.
Unbelievable.
Prior to ablation, one of the animals would become agitated when it made an incorrect choice during a memory task. Same, babe. I get agitated when I fuck shit up all the time. It's only a normal emotional response. But anyway.
Is that because they know they're about to get punished or something?
Possibly.
Oh no.
Who knows? They're very intelligent animals.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason. They're doing something unpleasant.
Yeah. Well, this agitated response was eliminated by the operation. No shit. Fucking, you're
'cause
maiming
you
the animal.
him.
Oh, God. The other animal in the study experienced the opposite reaction, though, it's worth noting, having been relatively docile, but after the ablation, it experienced agitation during the task performance. It's called an acquired brain injury. FYI, look it up. Anyway, this was 1935. So, also in 1935, Portuguese Am I saying that right? Sounds wrong.
Portuguese.
Yeah. Neurophysician Antonio Egas Moniz headed a similar operation on a human. Moniz, who was affected by gout and could not use his hands to perform the surgery, enlisted the help of Portuguese surgeon Pedro Almeida Lima. The surgery consisted of drilling 2 holes in the patient's head and then injecting pure ethyl alcohol into the prefrontal cortex.
God. Why? What's the purpose of
Imagine
this?
the burn.
What's the purpose of the ethyl alcohol into there?
Apparently, the alcohol was used to disrupt the neuronal tracts that were believed to give rise to and reinforce the recurrent patterns of thought observed in mentally ill patients. So that's their theory based on nothing.
So they either like cauterize the brain tissue basically, or they do that.
Yeah. At the time, this first operation was considered a success since there appeared to be a reduction in the symptoms of severe paranoia and anxiety
Of course.
that the patient had suffered prior to surgery. Moniz and Lima subsequently performed the operation on a small subset of patients, refining the procedure as they went. Moniz created an instrument called a leucotome, designed specifically to disrupt the tracts of neuronal fibres connecting the prefrontal cortex and the thalamus of the brain. Moniz and Lima operated on nearly 40 patients by 1937. However, the results were mixed, with some patients improving, others showing no change in symptoms, and others relapsing. Despite this, the practice was soon widely adopted, largely because there was few other therapeutic measures available at the time for quieting chronically agitated, delusional, self-destructive, or violent patients. The prefrontal lobotomy procedure developed by Moniz and Lima was modified in 1936 by American neurologist Walter J. Freeman II and James W. Watts. Freeman, which is our subject matter for today, preferred the use of the term lobotomy and therefore renamed the procedure prefrontal lobotomy. Now, this is where we introduce the villain in this story, Walter Freeman. Walter Jackson Freeman II was born on November the 14th in 1895. So old-timey. In Philadelphia.
Going back
I love an old-timey tale. Fascinating how they did things back in the day. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and died on May 31st, 1972, coming up on his anniversary, you guys. Freeman's father, Walter Jackson Freeman, was an otolaryngologist, an ear, nose and throat doctor. How often do you say otolaryngologist?
Never.
Never. ENT all the way.
ENT.
And his maternal grandfather, William Williams Keene, was a prominent surgeon in the Civil War. So he's come from a line of doctors.
Yes, okay. He's got the brains and he's got the
birthright.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Walter Freeman II was a sick child.
Of course, they all were back then.
Yeah, I
they
guess
all
they
were
were
back then.
I
There's no
suppose
good
so.
medicine.
Yeah, they were all sick. They're all fucking dying.
There's no vaccinations.
Yeah. He developed enlarged lymph nodes when he was 14 months old, which his grandfather cut out, the surgeon. Iconic.
What the fuck?
14-month-old surgery on his grandson. What?
Taking out lymph nodes?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. The surgery worked because he no longer had lymph nodes left to swell.
They're not there anymore.
But it permanently paralysed some of the muscles in Walter's shoulder and head.
No way.
Yeah.
Nerve damage.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Walter II also underwent a tonsillectomy and suffered from diphtheria, scarlet fever, the measles, whooping cough, the mumps, and pink eye.
Oh my God. Every single bloody disease that you can get vaccinated for these days.
Wouldn't
hey.
be surprised if he had syphilis.
How the fuck did he survive all of that? This is
probably his doctor
this
relatives.
Is an impressive man. No.
I thought this was a fun fact.
Right.
Young Walter's first memory was of the head of a pickaxe breaking through the wall of his nursery as the result of a home demolition that had gone a little sloppy. Traumatizing much. Walter's family was quite well off and he was raised with maids and cooks and nannies to attend to his and his parents' every whim.
And every single one of them left him alone for this just demolition job?
He must have been having a fucking nap. He was in his nursery.
Where were all the
They were demolishing.
the nannies, maids and everyone?
That's a valid question.
What the fuck?
I have no further information. I just thought that was funny.
No, fair enough.
His first memory was one of trauma.
You know, my first memory
Fucking axe murderer
is
coming
one
through.
of my dad giving me a sip of beer when I'm 2 years old.
Iconic. He was not overly an adventurous child and later wrote of himself, I think I was a sensitive, imaginative boy, docile, shut in a bit and full of questions. His parents nicknamed him Walter YY and The growing boy was particularly intrigued by the family business medicine. He had a good relationship with his grandfather, but almost no real friends, a bit socially inept.
Poor guy.
Yeah. The only boy he played with regularly was his younger cousin Morris. Walter and Morris nursed a mutual contempt for girls and disdaining the company of other children.
Mm-hmm.
They set up an exclusive secret society, just 2 members strong, which they called...
2 members strong.
Yeah.
I love that.
Him and his cousin. And they called it
Exclusive.
the Walrus Club. No girls or any other cunt allowed, obvious. Walter was the oldest of 6 siblings, all but 2 of whom were boys. He did not get along with them, nor did he particularly care for his parents. Walter would later note repeatedly that he never loved his mother. So he's a misogynist from the start. I don't know where he got it from, but he was like born hating women. Anyway, he was only a little closer to his father, who took him and his younger brothers on regular hiking, fishing and camping trips. Walter's dad hated his medical practice and considered the outdoors his only refuge. He was a weird one, dude. Once when Walter II was caught skipping school, his father punished Walter by whipping himself in front of the truant officer, which is the school officer. So the dad whipped himself instead of Walter. It was like, don't you ever skip school again, giving himself lashes. Fucking
weird.
What? Walter graduated from high school when he was just 16 years old, so he was smart. He immediately started attending classes at Yale. He was academically excellent, but completely miserable. He was too young and immature to get up to any kind of bonding shenanigans with his classmates, and his utter disdain for women made most kinds of socialization impossible. He joined the swim team at one point, but refused to practice when anyone was around. He didn't want people to see him with his shirt off. So you get a feel for the kind of man young Walter Freeman was. Not a comfortable one. He was a weird one, like his dad.
Scrawny as fuck? Is that
Maybe.
why he didn't want to take his shirt off?
Or
Got no chest hair?
Could be his injuries from his lymph node fucking dissection. His initial degree program was engineering, but this track was disrupted at the end of his junior year, where he ate a bad batch of raw clams and caught typhoid fever. Unfortunate.
Oh, you can get typhoid from clams?
Apparently.
Wow.
I just got anaphylaxis, but, you know, different era.
Hey. Wow.
He spent months laid up with this and an assortment of other ailments that took up the entirety of his first semester of senior year at Yale. This is very sad. This is sounding a lot like Joseph Mengele in his early life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The long months he spent at hospitals and sickbeds helped Walter realise that he wanted something different out of life. Mm-hmm. A career in medicine.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
That's what they all go to, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. After receiving a bachelor's degree in engineering in 1916 from Yale University, Walter, seeing as his dad was a miserable, fucked up person, instead looked towards his grandfather as a role model and enrolled in summer classes at the University of Chicago to catch up on medicine and science-related classes before starting medical school the next year. He excelled in this well and attempted to rebuild his health by walking 30 minutes to and from campus every day carrying a heavy box of bones. Random.
Bones?
Where the fuck?
What bones?
I don't know. Where the fuck do you collect bones from?
Roadkill?
I don't know.
That's weird.
He had bones. He was carrying them to get fit.
I mean, they didn't have dumbbells, I guess, in
Yeah.
1950.
He wanted to get buff. He wanted to get ripped, so he had to fucking carry some femurs, you know. He then enrolled as a medical student at the University of Pennsylvania and earned a medical degree in 1920. The roaring 20s. While attending medical school, he studied the work of William Spiller and idolised his groundbreaking work in the new field of neurological sciences. Freeman applied for a coveted position working alongside Spiller in his hometown of Philadelphia, but was rejected. Bow, bow. During the First World War, he was drafted into the Army Medical Corps and he became a sergeant while he continued his education. He was demoted once for threatening his company commander with a shoe.
What?
But he had an otherwise solid service record.
That gets you demoted?
I can just picture an Italian grandmother with a fucking thong, like, waving it around.
God.
Except it's a scrawny Walter Freeman with a, you know, mangled neck and...
Where did he get the shoe off?
I don't know.
Did he take it off
His own
himself?
shoe,
or?
I would say. I don't know. You're asking for details I do not have. Walter graduated as a doctor in 1920, the second in his class. By this point, he had become so enamoured with medicine that every other aspect of his past had followed by the wayside. Medicine, he wrote, held my interest to the point where I excluded many other things. He subsequently worked as an intern in pathology at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania as a medical intern. Walter was somewhat uneven. He excelled at neurology but proved less apt at handling what he called scut work, like transporting urine samples for analysis, doing physical work. Like, he's just one of those people. He's a Jane Toppin, doesn't want to do the fucking work.
He's a princess.
Yeah, he wants to be telling people what to do. He wants the power.
Massage, please.
Sometimes he would pour samples down the drain just to be rid of them. Unethical much?
So what does he say when they go, so what happened to the sample?
Not my fault. Must have been one of the nurses.
He
He was fascinated by neurosurgery, but too bored of the details of it to actually learn to perform surgery. He was fascinated by illness, but almost bored by the actual human beings he had to treat. Interesting, huh? Funny story. Apparently during this internship, a patient arrived at the hospital with his penis in dire shape. It was inflamed and dark. The organ was encircled by a ring that the patient's girlfriend had thrust over it, but was unable to remove it. So like a 1920s cock ring, but it was a wedding ring.
It's probably just a fucking piece of metal that they've soldered together or something,
like,
and just slip it on while it's soft.
Trying to maintain an erection or some shit. I don't know.
My God.
Kinky shit happened in the 1920s, guys. It's been happening for a long fucking time.
I wonder how many people have died doing kinky stuff in the past before it...
Well, if they stuck something up a 1920s arsehole, there's no way in fuck they're going to get that shit out. Were there even x-rays?
What happens if you put a zucchini up there and it's gone forever?
Guess it's just living there now.
Would it actually be gone forever?
No, it would be stuck in your ass until you got a bowel obstruction, I would say. Or an infection.
What an awful death.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I struggle when I'm constipated. Imagine having a fucking cucumber up your ass. So Freeman ended the patient's agony by filing through the ring and twisting it free with forceps. Ooh. The man asked for the ring, but Freeman told him it was a specimen and that he would have to keep it. Freeman had the ring repaired and the Freeman crest engraved on it. For years afterwards, Freeman wore the specimen on a gold chain around his neck. Like, fucking, what?
Creepy.
Fucking weirdo. A cock ring round his neck. So in 1923, Walter spent a year in Europe doing medical residencies in neuroscience and performing medical testing on animals. The highlight of his trip was watching the autopsy of an elephant. He was fascinated by the 4-hour task of opening the creature's skull to remove its brain. And to be fair, I would be fascinated with that shit too. Walter's first thought was that a jackhammer would have been the ideal tool to remove it, and that's where he loses me.
Okay, here we go.
Ominous foreshadowing of overkill, might I add. His thought process spawned a lifelong fascination in finding unique ways to break into skulls and access brains. He is into that shit, apparently. It's giving Hannibal Lecter.
Wow.
Do you remember that one?
The movie? No, but I've seen the series.
Anyway, you won't get the reference then.
No.
But if anyone who's watched Hannibal Lecter... Oh, no, it's Silence of the Lambs. Anyway, whatever. Same guy, same shit. Upon his return to the United States the following year, his first major job came courtesy of his grandfather, who used his connections to get his grandson a gig as the senior medical officer in charge of St. Elizabeth's Hospital, Washington, D.C. This was a psychiatric hospital, and working there gave Walter a direct look into the horrific ways 1920s America treated the mentally unwell, which I'm sure it was horrific. Freeman's initial perception of the hospital's patient wards was marked in part by disgust and fear. There were very few real treatments for psychiatric disorders, so patients were just locked in there together until they either died or lied well enough to claim that they had a spontaneous remission and got released. How fucked. Later, he described mental disorders and the fate of affected individuals as a social tragedy, and he came to believe that such disorders arose from organic causes, such as abnormal neuronal function, rather than from unconscious mental processes, as was emphasised by psychoanalysis. So he was like one of the first doctors to start thinking this way. Mm-hmm. And that's actually the correct line of thinking, the chemical imbalances, rather than just emotional issues. Mm-hmm. Since the inmates of this asylum were too pitiful to deserve Walter's sympathy, he instead focused on learning about the brain of the psychotic, as he called it, which essentially was just the general term for anyone that was not fitting into society back then. So people with autism, ADHD, any other like learning disorders also thrown into these fucking
Physical
categories.
Disabilities.
Yep. Freeman began to experiment with differing oxygen levels and their impacts on the brain of manic people. He also pioneered a new, easier method of collecting spinal taps from the patient. Wow. Sounds interesting, but it's kind of horrific. Instead of recruiting help to secure patients in a deep bend while sitting, like we do for spinals, Freeman employed what he was fond of calling the jiffy spinal tap method. Without assistance from other staff members, Freeman directed patients to sit backward on a chair and deeply bend their neck over the back of the chair, carefully navigating the opening at the base of the skull. He then pushed a needle into the reservoir of spinal fluid located just inside but perilously close to the base of the brain. Walter was still very much a loner, and he preferred his own professional company to acting as part of a team, even when that meant at greater risk of the patient. So it's just his own fucking selfish ego boosting methods, not for any kind of improvement of medical science. Can you imagine having a needle stuck into the fucking cervical vertebra?
No.
Yeah, nah.
Or a lobotomy done on me while
Yeah,
I'm
no,
awake.
thank you. Yeah, true. Walter opened a private practice while working at St. Elizabeth's to further his research, and in 1926 also took a job as a professor of neurology at George Washington University. By the early 1930s, he had a well-earned reputation as a psychiatric pioneer, and in 1931 earned a PhD. Good for him. Walter was largely responsible for the introduction of several exciting new treatments. Insulin shock therapy, which plunged patients into insulin shock to try and correct schizophrenic symptoms. Yeah, casual.
He's just experimenting in every possible way.
Yeah, another fucking Joseph Mengele, but less demonic, I guess. He also experimented with metrazole shock therapy and electroconvulsive therapy. The essential goal of all these treatments was the same: to slapstick people out of their issues by horrendously traumatizing their system, you know? Casual. In 1935, the possibility of surgical intervention presented itself when Freeman learned of a procedure called the frontal lobe ablation, the surgical removal of tissue technique that had been used in chimpanzees in task performance experiments. This is the same experiment that Moniz saw and went back and started doing his own brain-cutting operations. They went away and modified a surgical technique for the prefrontal cortex, as mentioned earlier. He experimented with ethyl alcohol, injecting the chemical through the holes in order to destroy areas of the tissue thought to be involved in causing mental illness. He subsequently created an instrument known as a leucotome, which contained a deployable wire loop designed to cut sections of tissue. The procedure of drilling holes in the front of the head and creating cores of brain matter with the instrument became known as the prefrontal leucotomy. That's what Moniz called it. Moniz then became a mentor and idol for Freeman. To him, the intoxicating thing about psychosurgery, which was Moniz's coined term for psychiatric surgery, was its potential to sever the links between the overexcited emotions of an unhealthy thalamus and the behavioural functions of the prefrontal lobes of the brain. If it worked, the destruction of those nerve fibres would prevent the thalamus from poisoning patients' thinking. He observed the details of Moniz's work and, with neurosurgeon Watts, began figuring out how to adapt the Portuguese physician's techniques. Freeman and Watts used brains from the hospital morgue to practice the coring of the sections of the prefrontal lobes with a leucotome, which is the device they used for that. So Freeman had to get the help from Watts, because Watts was a neurosurgeon, but Freeman was not. He refused to study neurosurgery because he was a lazy cunt. So he's just a neurologist. So he's not actually qualified to do surgery, let alone brain surgery. Okay? Keep that in the forefront of your mind. Freeman modified the procedure, leucotomy, and renamed it the lobotomy. Instead of taking corings from the frontal lobes, Freeman's procedure severed the connection between the frontal lobes and the thalamus. 1 year after the first leucotomy, on September 14, 1936, Freeman directed Watts through the very first prefrontal lobotomy in the United States on housewife Alice Hood Hammett of Topeka, Kansas, who was 63 years old and suffered from anxiety, insomnia, and depression. Do you reckon you suffer from anxiety, insomnia, and depression, Olivia? Lobotomy. Like what?
It's the only cure.
Yeah, but how outrageous does that sound? Freeman talked with her and concluded that a lobotomy was the only way for her to avoid spending the rest of her life in a mental hospital. How about you just don't chuck them in there for every other fucking thing, maybe? Much of the push to do this seems to have been her fucking husband, who was tired of dealing with a wife who needed help herself rather than just preparing meals for him and staying quiet. Misogyny. Freeman and his new partner Watts scheduled Miss Hammett for an appointment on September 14th, 1936. This first lobotomy did not start off well. Miss Hammett tried to back out when she learned the procedure would require her to shave her head. Many of her mental health issues focused around an obsession with her thinning hair. So this was obviously a matter of grave concern for her and very triggering. How poor thing. Freeman and Watts assured her that they would only have to shave off a few small sections of her scalp. This was a lie. Once they'd forcibly anaesthetised her, they shaved her bald. Cunts, man. Freeman recorded that her last words before going under were, "Who is that man? What does he want with me here? What is he going to do to me? Tell him to go away. Oh, I don't want to see him." Poor woman. Okay. With Freeman watching, Watts drilled 6 holes atop of Miss Hammett's skull and inserted a leucotome, a device that essentially would hold the brain into each hole. Both doctors worked together on lesioning the brain with Watts, the actual surgeon managing the whole affair. And as odd as it sounds, the lobotomy seems to have helped Mrs. Hamlet, which is crazy. Freeman wrote in his autobiography, "She survived 5 years, according to Mr. Hamlet, the happiest years of her life. As she expressed it, she could go to the theatre and really enjoy the play without thinking of what her back hair looked like or whether her shoes pinched." And it's entirely possible that this is an accurate representation of how Mrs. Hamlet felt. Many of Dr. Freeman's lobotomy patients experienced relief from some of their symptoms. That said, even the positive experiences with lobotomies are clouded by deeply disturbing questions of consent and structures of oppression. He and Watts were one of medicine's most dynamic duos following that operation. Rock stars. They established an office at a home in Washington, D.C. and gradually refined their technique, replacing Moniza's leucotome with an object Jack L. High describes as resembling a butter knife. Great. By November, only 2 months after performing their first lobotomy surgery, Freeman and Watts had already worked on 20 cases, including several follow-up operations. By 1942, the duo had performed over 200 lobotomy procedures and had published results claiming 63% of patients had improved, 23% were reported to be unchanged, and 14% were worse after surgery. They also switched around the positioning of the holes from which they cut into the brain. When patients' symptoms persisted, Watts and Freeman would perform multiple lobotomies and make deeper cuts into the brain, just maiming them more. Yeah, that'll work. One patient, a lawyer suffering from alcoholism, escaped the hospital after his operation was found drunk in the downtown bus. So that clearly didn't fucking work. Downtown bar, sorry. Clearly didn't fucking work. One patient showed up after his surgery and threatened to murder the doctors.
Jesus.
2 pulled guns when Freeman recommended they undergo lobotomies. So it was not always a smooth process.
Yeah.
I'd pull a gun too. Mind, I don't want no needle in my fucking brain or butter knife.
No.
Although the medical community was sceptical of the procedure, and rightly so, and many physicians disapproved of it, Freeman believed it would change psychiatric medicine for the better and found the popular media to be an ally in his efforts to promote its use. He and Watts started setting up a lobotomy booth at the annual AMA convention in 1939. So it's like, you know, when you get kicked out of nursing, your last resort is to go on TikTok and start spreading bullshit. You know, correlations. I will always find a connection to my drama on TikTok. Anyway, Freeman and Watts performed a number of standard lobotomies, many of which were carried out at their private practice in Washington, D.C., not even in an operating room. Freeman would use handheld clackers to get the attention of reporters with loud noises at his booths. He and Watts even lobotomized a monkey in 1939. This spectacular event dominated coverage of the convention. Freeman wrote, "That night a monkey died, but Watts and I made the headlines, even though we did not get an award. Our display failed, but we made the headlines, so it's all G." Now, 55% of the first 623 surgeries Watts and Freeman carried out had what they described as good results. 32 were fair and 13 were poor. 3% died during or immediately after the surgery.
Jeez.
And if you take Freeman's word for it, those are good results. More than half of people had a good result of the operation, particularly considering these tended to be patients who had exhausted conventional treatment options. However, Freeman never went into detail about what he considered to be a good result, nor did he update his results when patients relapsed, which was extremely common. The typical altering of findings and, you know, sharing good and withholding bad. Typical psychopath doctor. Anyway, now nurses reported that patients of the duo often needed to relearn how to eat and handle other basic tasks. Fucked. I wouldn't call that successful. They soiled themselves, flirted bizarrely with orderlies, and would start staring off into the distance for hours on end. That is an acquired brain injury, my friend. Hands down. Walter Freeman considered these positive changes. The fact that the lobotomy patients were dull, quiet, uncoordinated, and lazy was, he felt, an improvement over the manic episodes and excessive activity. Many officials at mental hospitals felt the same way because anything that makes your job easier is a good thing, I suppose. Freeman Watts patients were much easier to deal with on a long-term basis since many of them just sat around quietly. Fucking pathetic. By 1945, Freeman had begun to lose confidence in the effectiveness of standard lobotomies, and thus he set to work on refining a procedure known as the transorbital lobotomy.
Oh, God. Yeah.
This was not only less expensive and faster than standard lobotomies, but also, Freeman believed, more effective. He was frustrated by the fact that the procedure required a skilled neurosurgeon and wanted to do it by himself.
What the of course.
Take away the cracking open of a skull. Apparently you don't need a neurosurgeon to pierce the eyeball. The fuck? That meant he could only perform the operation when Watts was around during the original procedure, which dramatically limited the number of people he could properly lobotomize. This was a problem because he'd come to believe that lobotomies worked best for patients in the early stages of their illness. If people waited too long, he feared the lobotomy might not really help. The transorbital lobotomy was first attempted in 1937 by Italian psychosurgeon Amaro Fiamberti.
Whoa.
Fiamberti performed the operation by forcing a thin tube or cannula or a leucotome through the bony orbit of the back of the eye socket and injecting alcohol or formalin into the frontal lobe. Imagine formalin. That is a cytotoxic compound.
Yeah.
That would just burn your brain to bits. Freeman's new procedure allowed him to perform lobotomies without the use of anaesthesia because he used electroconvulsive therapy instead to induce a seizure, and then he would use a mallet to tap an orbitoclast, which is a slender rod shaped like an ice pick, through the orbital roof. Following penetration of the orbital roof, Freeman would sweep the orbitoclast laterally to obliterate the frontal lobe tissue. So basically shoving it in the eye and swizzling it around, much like the fucking coil thing. Yeah.
The super coil.
The super coil of our last episode. Just shoving it in, swizzling it around and hoping for the best. What the fuck? Oh my God. Primitive. Anyway.
Yeah, he's gone backwards, actually.
Yeah, what the fuck?
He's gone backwards.
Additionally, he was able to perform the procedure in an office setting because he anaesthetised patients with a portable electroshock machine.
That's not anaesthesia.
No, it's not. Just puts them in a daze. But anyway, he performed the transorbital lobotomy surgery for the first time in Washington, D.C. on a depressed and violent housewife named Sadie Ellen Ionesco. The procedure was deemed a success. The patient was able to return to a relatively normal life. Freeman did not share his plans for the transorbital lobotomy with Watts because he wanted Watts to fuck off. And Freeman later wrote that during his 10th transorbital surgery, he called Watts to his office to assess the operation. Watts later claimed, however, that he entered Freeman's office unsummoned and found Freeman pushing an ice pick into the eye socket of an unconscious man.
God. Okay.
At least he was unconscious. Freeman audaciously asked Watts to hold the ice pick so Freeman could take a photograph. Watts threatened to break off their partnership if Freeman persisted in performing lobotomies himself and treating them as office procedures done without surgical gloves or sterile draping. Like what?
What the fuck?
Yeah, he didn't like gloves, this guy. Would argue that he didn't like washing his hands either.
Yeah, of course he's got no concept of sterility or cleanliness.
Watts argued that such procedures should not be performed in their private offices. From that point on, Freeman performed the procedure elsewhere and for a period of time toured the country operating on patients in hospitals and sometimes in other settings such as hotel rooms. Casual. Fuck. Bring me a martini while I jam this ice pick into someone's fucking face. A book the two men authored on the subject of lobotomies included this paragraph. The authors regret to announce that they have been unable to reach an agreement on the subject of transorbital lobotomies. Freeman believes that he has proved the method to be simple, quick, effective, and safe to entrust to the psychiatrists. Watts believes that any procedure involving cutting of the brain tissue is a major operation and should remain in the hands of a neurological surgeon, and I'm with Watts. Precisely, my dear Watts, as Sherlock Holmes would say. This book, Psychosurgery and the Treatment of Mental Disorders and Intractable Pain, made an enormous impact in the world of medicine when it was first published in 1950, even though the two authors don't fucking agree on the transorbital lobotomy. Anyway, the book featured language not often used in the words of medicine, like the term scrawny frayed cats, used to refer to a group of patients.
What?
Sounds very politically correct.
The fuck?
This, along with the outlandish marketing techniques used by Freeman to attract the press, alienated many mainstream medical professionals. They all took a giant step back from this cunt. Rightly so. But the book was popular and cemented Freeman's status as a radical physician working on the cutting edge of medical science. On the eve of his 52nd birthday, he wrote, "I have a feeling of competence and assurance that is most grandiose. Maybe it comes from superb health, and maybe from the fruition of dreams that have proved within my grasp."
Totally.
What a narcissist. And delusion, because you're not fucking healthy. Anyway, you're missing fucking lymph nodes, cunt. Shut up. Anyway, although Watts retained a deep respect for his partner, he couldn't get over his belief that brain surgery ought to be only carried out by a competent brain surgeon, not random guys with an ice pick. In 1950, Walter Freeman's longtime partner James Watts left their practice and split from Freeman due to his opposition to the transorbital lobotomy. And that is the end of part 1.
Wow.
In the next part, we are going to talk about some more of his patients and the horrific shit they went through and his ultimate downfall and the ending of the lobotomy. So what do you think
Thank
so
God.
far?
I just keep thinking about the Nurse Ratched Netflix show. It's
Oh,
really
yeah?
good, where they have the literal, like the scenes of him hammering the picks into their
The ice pick.
brains. Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the patients like dies on the table
Yeah.
in the show.
Not surprised.
Yeah, obviously.
Happens in real life too.
Did happen, yes, of course. Yeah, it's interesting because I think people like revered, like really looked up to this guy. Like they were just amazed at what he was able to do.
Yeah, because he was falsifying results and telling them it was working.
But they just had absolutely no idea how depraved and fucked up this was.
And they had no idea how psychiatric disorders worked and how you to treat them. So it's really like
It's all experimenting.
trailblazing, much like most of the fucking surgeons in this podcast.
Yep.
They find a unresearched area to go into so that they can fucking carry out their hideous experiments.
They want to be a
unethically.
pioneer of something, a lot
Yeah,
of them,
and
I
they
think.
don't go through the ethical processes and moral processes to do it right. Like, obviously, trailblazing surgery is how we got here, but like, do it the right way, guys. There's got to be a better way than just fucking hammering an ice pick into someone's face and saying, "That's great."
I don't know. I mean, back then, the thinking was clearly different.
But he didn't have the support of his peers. He had to petition the media to get the word out there about the lobotomy. And the media would spread the word and patients would reach out to him, much like Paolo
I
Macchiarini
see.
and his documentaries. You know? There's always a way. Misinformation will fly, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful of what you see. Always get a second opinion, so on and so forth.
Yes.
And on that, we shall leave you. Send us an email if you want a request or you would like to comment on the episode. Check out our Instagram. Check out Olivia's business Instagram, Aurea Fine Jewelry,
Yes, that's right.
on Instagram, and Etsy, and, you know, buy a piece if you feel so inclined.
I've got 3 available. They're just one-off pieces, but I've got 4 more coming, and 3 will be permanent, and 1 is a one-off piece.
Fuck yeah. Love that. All right, toodaloo. We'll see you in part 2.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
I'm going to eat a snack now.
Nuts.
Some nuts.
I love nuts.